Hello and welcome to another Buzz and Practice video. In this video, I'm going to be explaining and demonstrating how variables can help personalize your user's experience, but also provide you with some tools to help you better manage content that is accessible to multiple teachers. To start off, let's learn a little bit what variables are. Variables provide another way to simply and uniquely personalize each user's learning experience. You can place these variables in your content, and Buzz will automatically replace the variables with dynamic values drawn from the user, course, or their domain. Here's a list of all the course variables that are available across all courses. Now, a couple of things to note. Course variables only work within course content, and course content that is actually managed within Buzz itself. This would include your activities or your assessments, discussion board descriptions, your journal descriptions, that kind of content. This would not apply to websites that are embedded within Buzz or even HTML resources that you have uploaded to Buzz and you are having displayed as an activity to your end user. Instead, this would only apply to things that you actually edit within Buzz itself. Now here we can see all of the available variables. In the first column we have the name, which is the identifier used for Buzz to know what value should be swapped for it. When you actually want to implement it, you actually need to surround it with $signs. In this particular case, I've tweaked my HTML code so that these $signs actually get rendered properly. But over here, we can see what is the actual end result of doing this. These things were actually dynamically loaded. So I'm currently logged in, authenticated as Ryan Teacher, and it is telling me that the domain ID for my teacher, or the person I'm logged in as, is this. And the name of my domain is this. My user ID is this, and so on. So we can look through here and we can see a lot of information about the currently authenticated user without me actually having edited any of this. So let me actually open up the editor so you can see what this looks like. So we can see that over here we're just using the $sign domain ID and $sign domain name, etc. And it is actually automatically getting replaced with the variables for that particular user. So we have some domain variables up here. Then we get some user variables down here from like their username or their user display. We have everything from their enrollment ID information to their enrollment first name, which is the same in this case of their user first name. And then down here we have some more information. So information about the course. So we have like the course ID or the name of the course, which is the variables, or the course reference, which is the course external ID. This is the item ID of the current activity I'm looking at, and this is actually the name of the activity I'm looking at. And all of this is being swapped using the replacement variables. Now what I want to show you is how this may look differently and how you can use these different variables. I'm going to open up and I'm going to preview this activity as a student and an observer of that particular student. So let me go and open that up. So over here we have the student, and I'm going to put this on this side of the screen, and let me just go to the same activity, so the system-wide course variables, and then I'm going to open up an observer on the other side. On the right side we have the observer for Brad's student, and on the left side we have the student logged in themselves. Now we can see that a lot of the information is the same, but once we get down to the user information, we'll see some differences. Now the reason why it's a little bit different is because all the way from domain ID down to user reference refers to the currently authenticated user. So we'll see different information for here. Over here we have Brad student is logged in, and then over here we can see that the current user is Elaine parent. Now down here we're going to see a little bit of different information when we look at the enrollment. The enrollment first, when I look at it as the observer, is Brad, and the enrollment last is student. Well, that's the same, that's over here. And the reason why is because we're actually loading the enrollment that they are observing their information. It's important to know that so when you implement your variables, you know what information is that end user going to be seeing. If you actually want it to reflect not the user that's authenticated, but the student enrollment that's looking at that, then you would want to use some enrollment variables. Let's get back looking at it from the teacher perspective. So we have all these system-wide variables. These will be dynamically replaced depending upon the user that's looking at it. What this means is that it will be contextual according to the current user that's authenticated or the current enrollment that's looking at the course. Now you can create some of your own variables, but they can't be necessarily unique per user, but they could be unique per course or set of users within a domain. Here we could see that I've created various variables for this particular course. One of the reasons why you may want to create custom course variables is to be able to copy the course or share the course with other teachers and allow them to just make the tweaks to the variables so the course content reflects who the teacher is. And so let me give you an example of this. So we created several things from instructor salutation. So does a teacher prefer to be referred to as doctor, professor, Mr., Mrs., or Miss, or whatever it may be. The instructor first name, so that you may have multiple teachers enrolled into the course. Well, who is the primary instructor? So you can say the instructor first name, the instructor last name, an instructor quote, for example, and I'll show you why we're using this in this particular case later on. In office, what this would represent is the office number for this particular instructor, that instructor's phone number, the instructor's email, what classroom does the class meet in, maybe how many credits the course is worth. Down here you can see that I've done this multiple times in my own courses I teach, and the reason why I do this is because maybe the actual name of the course or the title of the course in the LMS is more representative of a course code that is identified in the SIS, whether it's for administrative purposes or for just following what is actually within the SIS. And so I create custom course names and custom short course names so that I can refer to the course within my content itself. In this example, I'm referring to the course as Education Technology, and then we refer to that just as Ed 206. And then maybe the year of the course, what days of the week does this class meet, and then what are the office hours for the teacher. So those are some of the custom course variables that I've created for this particular course. Now the benefit of this, once again, is if this course has been copied and it's been used by hundreds of different teachers throughout the entire school or throughout the entire district, or let's say you're a publisher and you provided this course to a lot of people, well, to customize it and to replace every single location in the course where it may refer to as teacher's name or teacher's phone number, the teacher or course author only needs to go to their course variables and adjust them there. So let me show you what that means. So if I jump over to the editor for this course and I open up tools and I go to course settings, you'll find a section called variables. If I change any one of these variables, it will get reflected in this particular course or any derivative courses as well. And so let's say I need to change who the teacher is for this course. I want to change them from Dr. to Mr. The instructor's first name is Brian, and their last name is Wilkes. Now that I'm done with this, I can go and press save. Likewise, I can create additional variables or tweak my other variables, and everywhere these variables are used throughout the entire course will now get reflected in here. So let me go and jump to my custom course variables, and you can see that those variables got changed. So the benefit is, if I'm using the salutation and the instructor's last name throughout the course in various different locations, I only have one location I need to go change. So when you want to use variables and you want to think of what are the custom course variables I need to create, you should be considering what are the things that could change, either from year to year, or from teacher to teacher, or from class to class. What are the things that can change? And then you can create variables for those individual things in allowing the instructor to just make those tweaks into their course settings and have them reflected anywhere in the course that those variables may be used. Now let's take a look at custom domain variables. Custom domain variables are variables that you can define at a domain. A couple of things to note about custom domain variables. The custom domain variables, when you define them in a domain, they will only apply to the users of that domain. So if you created a district variable in a district domain, but the students exist in the school subdomain, so not in the actual district domain, but a subdomain of that, they will not see that district variable. You would have to recreate that variable on that particular school. But what this does provide you with the option of is defining different variables for every single domain, or not necessarily different names for every domain, but different values for every single domain, so that the variables can be personalized for the students of that particular domain. In this example, I've created a few different variables, things from the school name to the school URL, the school honor code URL, the school address, copyright, phone number, and then a few things for support. Now the purpose of these support ones are similar to like a publisher or district. So maybe you provide support to your users and you want to provide them a phone number to be able to reach out to support, or a URL to reach out to support. And in this case, I'm providing an account number like a publisher because maybe they want that student to relay to them what's the account number of their school so that they know how to route their inquiries. Let me show you how you configure this. So I need to go in and log in as an administrator, and I'm in this particular domain. If I go to my domain settings, over here in the show text editor, underneath the domain customization, you'll see where you can create variables. You may have several different things in here, so I would caution you to pay close attention to how you do this and reach out to support if you need help. But here we can see that I've created various variables, and I've created each one of these variable names, and I've created all the values for each one of these variables. Once again, this is in your domain settings. You need to go into the show text editor and then underneath the domain customization. And once again, these variables are not inherited by subdomains. So these variables will only be applicable to the users of that particular domain. In other words, if I'm a user of a different domain and I log into a course that's using these variables or attempting to use these variables, I will not see the values actually get replaced because the variables don't exist in my particular domain. Let's now take a look at some examples. So we have this welcome letter here, and let me open up the editor for this particular activity. We can see that we're using variables in several different locations. We're using the item name variable, which is one of those system-wide course variables. What this will do is automatically replace this variable with the name of the activity, which is welcome letter. Down here we see enrollment user. This is one of those system-wide course variables as well. And the enrollment user variable actually will be replaced with the first and last name, or the full name of the currently authenticated user and the enrollment that they are viewing. And down here we have a couple of custom course variables. So I have my custom variable called course name custom and course name custom short. And then down here we got a couple of more variables. So we have our instructor salutation, and then instructor last. If we look at how this looks to the end user, we can see that the item name variable got replaced with welcome letter. The enrollment user variable got replaced with Ryan Teacher because I am currently authenticated as Ryan Teacher and I'm looking at this enrollment of Ryan Teacher. And then down here we see the two custom course variables, the course full name, which is the education technology, and then the short, which is Ed 206. And then down here we can see we have our instructor salutation variable being replaced with Mr. and instructor last name being replaced with Wilkes. And so the benefit of these variables is that this letter could be used or be provided from a master course and being used by lots of different teachers. And instead of them having to edit the letter and breaking that link from the master course, they can continue to receive updates because their variables are just getting swapped whenever the user looks at the particular activity. So we can continue modifying this master item, continue to receive those updates, and every single teacher still can have their name signed at the bottom as well as the name of the student in the address or in the top of the letter. And so it really allows for the letter to feel personalized, feel as if almost it was written for them and written by their teacher. Now let's look at another example. This is sort of assuming that this might be a publisher district content. Now this one's a little bit different because this is actually a linked activity. What this means is I don't have actually author rights to this activity. You can see that it's read only. So there's this activity and there's a bunch of variables being used throughout it. It's populating the course information, the teacher information, the school information, etc. And we can see that each one of these variables can be overridden, or it's automatically pulling in those system-wide course variables. So let's jump back and look at this. So we can see that it's pulling in the instructor's quote, so a little personalized quote that the teacher wants their course to see. Now if a publisher is providing this, that means that this publisher could provide this to hundreds of different domains, thousands of different types of courses, and this particular activity could be used for every single one of those courses, because the variables are swapping out everything that's contextual or personalized for this particular course. So down here, just point out a couple of things. The name of this course, this is one of those system-wide course variables. This is the one called course name. Down here, this is one of those custom course variables. Well, actually, all of this is custom course variables. And then teacher information, all of this is custom course variables as well. And then down here, we see these are custom domain variables being pulled in. And under here, underneath support information, so maybe we want to guide our users when they reach out to support to provide their enrollment ID, which their enrollment ID would be unique to their user. And this is one of those system-wide course variables, so this would be unique per user. The account number, which would be unique per user's domain. The website, which would be unique per user's domain as well as the phone number. So let's say whenever the student or the teacher needs to reach out to their publisher or to their support channel, they have this information ready available to them. Each one of this information could be injected into activities throughout the entire course, and you just need to update those variables once to have them reflect an update, to reflect a new teacher, to reflect a new phone number, to reflect a new website. That way you don't have to go and look through your course and try to find where all this information is being used, but you can use them as variables and update them once. Now the last example I'd like to show you is this simple Dropbox activity. So let's say this is a budget that I expect my students to complete. Now I remember when I was a teacher, I always had to give them explicit instructions to say, hey, make sure you save this file in this format of last name, first name, and maybe some other identifier. Well, a lot of students wouldn't do that. A lot of students would just submit the untitled.xlsx file, or maybe they saved it as a different thing. Maybe they didn't follow the instructions exactly right, or they didn't quite understand how you wanted them to do it. Well, here I'm using some variables to show them exactly the way I want it to do, and it's personalized for each individual enrollment. So if we look at this, we can see how I have it formatted. So I'm saying this particular assignment, I want their submission to be titled budget dash their enrollment last name, their enrollment first name, dash their enrollment ID. And so the end user, I don't even have to tell them, oh, use enrollment last name and enrollment first name. I can give them a real life example of saying, hey, this is what your file name should be. It should be budget dash teacher, which is my last name, Ryan, which is my first name, dash my enrollment ID, .xlsx. And then they attach that file and it's done. Then I can download my files. I can know who it was submitted by just by looking at the submission title. And that is course and custom variables. Hopefully these are helpful for you to be able to identify how you can customize your course, personalize your course for your users, but also make it a little bit easier in creating content that can be used by multiple teachers or across multiple domains.